Yes, we are late. We do apologise here. It is Monday lunchtime. It is a Celtic State of Mind. It is myself, Colin Watt, and the amazing Amy Canavan. Amy, how are you this fine Monday morning?
I'm
Lunchtime,
good,
sorry.
Colin. Yeah, lunchtime now. Yeah, no, I'm good. It's good to be back. Been a few weeks away, so yeah, delighted to be back on the Axon airwaves. There we go. God, I should. 25, I'm not even 30 seconds in, and that's my first error.
It's all right. We're getting there. And to be honest, a fantastic weekend all round in terms of the world of Celtic. We're going to cover all of the action from yesterday's game. We're going to look at some of the fallout from it and some of the post-match comments from both managers. We're also going to take a look at the sort of media reaction to this and get your views on what you thought about the red cards. We're only going to talk about the Hearts ones because this is a Celtic show and that should be played at the weekend. We're going to take a look ahead to a future away game which just went on sale this morning, which is St Mirren, and an interesting fact which has come out about this game, which I think is definitely worth covering. And we'll take a look at how the B team and the women's team got on at the weekend. But first of all, a special mention to the Kano Foundation. They had their 13,000th free child getting into the game on Sunday. 13,000 kids since they started back in 2010-11. For anyone who doesn't know the story, there was money raised for a popular Celtic fan by the name of Martin Kane. His nickname was Kano back in 2008. He was suffering from motor neuron disease, and the Celtic fans really came together to raise some funds for him so that he could get some specialist treatment. And with the money that was left over from that, they decided that they would try and get some kids into the game to sort of lift them over the turnstile, the way that a lot of you guys probably experienced your first game back in the day. It's a fantastic initiative that is done by the Kano Foundation. I believe they've got 154 kids season tickets that they've managed to fundraise for. They take 150 kids to the game every week. They get a lunch, they get a goodie bag, including a Kano Foundation scarf. You see them in their high-vis vests behind the goal at what was traditionally the Rangers' end. It's a fantastic achievement, and I believe the 13,000th kid, he was able to go onto the side of the park and meet Stephen Welsh, and Joe from the Homeboys podcast as well was there. So, Amy, it's just a fantastic initiative, and it just shows that even with everything that goes on in the Celtic world, charity is still one of the first things that we concentrate on.
Yeah, it's a terrific organisation, foundation. I was actually just speaking with Erin Boyle on Friday night, and we were just chatting things through Kano Foundation wise as well. It's just at the heart of what they have is what should always be at the heart of what Celtic do and try to achieve. I know that's not always easy, but a club of our size should really be able to try and prioritise that as much as possible. And I think the Kano Foundation, the work that they do probably still doesn't get quite the recognition that it actually does deserve. I would like to see the club perhaps they'll do a little bit more for them, with them, and certainly present it in a way that you can see, it shouldn't just be the 13,000 kids perhaps getting down on the touchline. I would be much more game to see that more often, and I think most of the Celtic fans would as well, because as you take pride in it, and rightly so. And I think it's a remarkable job that they have done up until now, and here's the next 13,000.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to know in the comments section. We are live on YouTube. To everyone who's joining us, a warm welcome. Have any of your kids, or have you guys experienced the opportunity to go along with the Kano Foundation to a game? If you have, let us know what the experience was like. I think it's a fantastic initiative. When we look at it, we've been doing this since 2010-11. That's the best part of 12 years now. And to the point where you're taking about 1,000 kids a season, that works out at, and probably more than that because we had the full season where we were behind closed doors with the COVID stuff. I just think it's absolutely fantastic, and the fact that Celtic are starting to recognise this, and I believe that they now donate the season tickets to them as well. It's a fantastic initiative, and when you look around and you go and you see kids playing in the park, and you ask them who their sort of heroes are, and they'll tell you it's Messi, it's Ronaldo. I mean, when we were growing up, Amy, Henrik Larsson was mine. I know Joe Ledley was yours. We'll get to that. But actually integrating them within the ethos of Celtic Football Club, and showing them that this is their dad's team, this is their mum's team, this is their brother's team, their sister's team, instead of what we see down south with all the Premier League sort of hypocrisy and the sort of commercialisation. There is still proper football, and getting along and experiencing that game at Celtic Park, it can really win back the kids and show them that Celtic is the team for them.
Yeah, it's the right way to go about things, and I think you're spot on. Not necessarily comparing, but bringing it into reference with what you see down south. It's the simplest thing. Even a shirt these days, we're talking about the cost of living crisis right now as well, that a football shirt's hard to get, never mind now with a name on the back. So to be able to get these young kids inside Celtic Park, I thought it was dear when I was growing up, but it's definitely doubled, at least since I know when we got our first ticket. So it's anything that can kind of make sure that the young kids still are not outpriced out of the game, so to speak. That's a win in my eyes.
Absolutely, and again, a massive congratulations to everyone involved in the Kano Foundation. It is a fantastic charity, and we do hope that anyone that can will support them going forward. And let's see this number grow from 13,000 to 15,000 to 20,000, and let's hope that this continues for many, many years to come. So once again, congratulations to everyone involved. But they were at the Celtic Hearts game yesterday, as was I. First of all, Amy, your overall impressions of the game as a whole. Ange Postecoglou said after the game it was an okay performance, a bit stop-start, can certainly do better. Is that what you took away from it?
I think stop-start's probably the greatest evaluation of it. There wasn't a lot of rhythm, which is very un-Postecoglou-esque. You certainly don't... Well, it's been a long time since we've not seen sort of the free-flowing football that Ange really does try to instill. But, it's not a horrendous performance by any stretch of the imagination. Alarm bells aren't going off, so before anyone thinks that's what I'm trying to suggest, it's not. But it's there was a real lack of rhythm, and I think you've got to give credit to Hearts in that respect, that there wasn't a lot of great expectations coming through, and rightly so. This game on Thursday is not only huge for Hearts, but it's huge for Scottish football, so I take great delight that they're prioritising that over any league game, not just the fact that it's Celtic. I think that it's the right approach. You've got to protect your best players going into the game against Zurich, which are still very much in. So there was obviously a game plan from Hearts to sit back, frustrate Celtic, and I think I know they expected it to maybe be a more ruthless Celtic and a more ruthless afternoon, a more rampant Celtic, and I think perhaps we all did. But Hearts just kind of chuck down the gauntlet, and you've just got to kind of break that down. And it's easier said than done at times. You can have as many attacking, free-flowing players as you like on the pitch, but if you've got 11 men behind the ball at all times, it's not easy. So it was very much a job done. I think it's one that you don't try dwell on too much, and there are definitely positives to take from it still. In saying all of that there was no rhythm, I don't think Hearts really troubled Celtic too much. I think in the opportunities that they could have, they didn't take. I think a better side or better players even in that side would take these opportunities. But the players on the pitch didn't, and that's all that really does matter. So not a performance, a match that's going to set the heather alight, but it's 3 points, and not necessarily up the road, but 3 points in you get, and just move on to the next one kind of thing.
Yeah, some would say you'd say that's a professional performance from Celtic, considering everything that was going on in that game. I think overall, the way that Hearts lined up, as you say, they were putting themselves out very difficult to break down. They made 7 changes, was it, from the team that played against Zurich the other night? Obviously, one's been like Barry Mackay dropping out, Cammy Devlin, Craig Gordon, Shankland, yeah. So, as you said, you could tell they were starting to focus on the game on Thursday, but the team that they put out still had a lot to try and sort of impress Robbie Neilson, especially because I think even after that game on Thursday night, there was still jerseys up for consideration. And then obviously you've got the injuries and the red cards to talk about. So there was definitely some very good performances. I think from the word go, Hearts didn't allow Celtic to sort of play the way that they want to play out from the back. You saw Liam Boyce and Ginnelly closing down onto the back two or the back three with Joe Hart. What Liam Boyce was doing after a couple of minutes, I really don't know. That was just silly. Why he was kind of kicking the ball away from Joe Hart. I mean, that's an obvious yellow card. That's the first one. You can't complain about that. You're kicking the ball away. Joe Hart's about to take a goal kick. That's just sheer stupidity.
Yes, it's as easy as it gets for a referee. It's the same that when I'm trying to think what the game was the other day. I've watched that much football this weekend that when a striker runs right in front of the goalie to block him kicking out as well. So not only kicking the ball away but then blocking. It's just as easy as you like it. It's blatant. It kind of seems a little bit ridiculous perhaps after this weekend to still maybe say it's as easy as you like, because there were some extremely easy decisions that were not correct decisions over the weekend. But let's just swiftly move on. So it is a blatant, easy as you like yellow card, even if the referees may not always make it out like that.
Yeah, definitely. And then the first goal coming in the 13th minute from Kyogo Furuhashi, the third time this season already that he's opened the scoring for Celtic. I think Daisen Maeda down the right-hand side does really well to stay on his feet as he's been challenged, gets that perfect ball across, and it's in that difficult area where if the defender doesn't attack it, the goalkeeper isn't going to come out and get it. He's sort of in no man's land as Kyogo's left unmarked between Sibic and who was it Haring that was playing centre half alongside him. But in between the two of them, with the chance to basically just tap it into the back of the net, very similar to his goal that he scored that caused all this controversy last year, except this time he was definitely 100% onside. It was Raoul's and Sibic that was playing centre half. They just left him there, and you can't do that with Kyogo Furuhashi. He's going to find the back of the net 10 times out of 10, and it was a nice, comfortable, controlled finish past Ross Stewart into the net.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you hear a lot over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever it's been, 24 hours, that it's a simple tap, and it's certainly not. There's still a lot of control behind it, but I think you've really got to, as you rightly have done, give credit to Daisen Maeda, to the power to battle past Alex Cochrane really, and eventually get the ball across. But it's a fantastic, well worked goal. Even the slip ball into Maeda originally, it's timed nicely, and it allows Maeda to, he's beating anyone for pace. The guy's absolutely frightening, and to still be able to get that quality of ball across. We've seen many a Celtic winger over the years. You can have all the pace, but then the ball doesn't have that quality. But Maeda certainly seems to have that in abundance to get it across, just to know where Kyogo is. And yeah, albeit it's perhaps an empty net or certainly a wide enough target for him, but it's at an awkward height, and he does very well to control it. And we've seen them go sky high, still coming down the next again day and skew your shots. So to be able to just keep that all under control, it's certainly not a tap-in is what maybe some would suggest.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously seen me playing seven-a-sides if you think that it's not an easy finish. But no, he takes it very well. Kyogo obviously off the mark. He's doing extremely well so far this season, as I said, 3-3. And it was a very good cross from Maeda on the right-hand side. There was other opportunities in that first half where Celtic could have broke through a number of times, where Kyogo was sort of sitting on the last man of either Rowles or Sibic. And I think looking back on the highlights, there was 2 or 3 opportunities where Kyogo was played through and he was actually onside when the referees gave off. And as you said, it's easy enough to criticise referees when you're getting beat, but you've got to also look at it and you've got to bring it up when you're winning games as well. The standard of refereeing in this country is very, very poor. Very poor. And when you take a look at the first one, I think it's the one where Kyogo goes to take the ball round Ross Stewart. He's at least 2 or 3 yards onside. That, for me, is just unforgivable. To be that far onside and for the flag to be given, that's just that's incompetence from the linesman.
Yeah, I think, you don't want to almost go too heavy, but rightly so. The refereeing decisions have dominated, sports scene this weekend, highlight shows, conversations, analysis. I know that's not what we want. It's not, because it's not analysis. In a highlight show, post match, whatever it may be, you do want it to focus on the game. But when there's just so many, a catalogue of decisions, really, it kind of does have to just take over. I think the one you referred to is the one that I'm thinking of as well, and it's Alex Cochrane actually on the near side, the one closest, to the dugout, so closest to the linesman. For me, that's as easy as you get. The fact that the guy closest to you, do you know what I mean? It's not, sometimes when it's, a defender in the middle or on the far side, or there's players blocking, but the fact that it's the body closest to where the linesman should be running, I would use should be, the fact that, you can blatantly see that the green shirt is, as you rightly say, 2-3 yards behind. I don't think they get much easier. You should kind of just be going, oh, that's a nice easy one. So there are a lot of decisions like that, but as much as you can try and give sympathy, because it's a fast-paced game and you don't have the luxury of a replay. But referees have never, up until now, obviously, but in Scotland, referees have never had the luxury of a replay. That's why you go through the training, a referee, on a Saturday or a Sunday, at amateur level, junior level, they don't have a replay either. You're never going to get every decision right. I appreciate that. We're all only human, but then if errors like that are getting made, then surely there's no refereeing training going on at all, and anyone could almost be a referee, because it's basically just pot luck. It's kind of what the way that it's looking at. So a lot has to be changed. When it will get changed, how it will get changed, I do not know, because as we're saying, these guys that are making these decisions are just going to be the ones that are eventually in control of VAR. And I've had my views on VAR before. I think it could open just a whole new can of worms, and I don't know how much good it will actually bring. But we're at a stage now that something really does have to change, because the standard and the quality has dropped remarkably in the last probably 4 or 5 seasons. It's never been great, but I think now it's shocking, and we've all had our laughs over the years that so and so with this team, so and so with that team, but I don't think anyone can actually say now that there's almost favouritism anywhere, except for maybe a few exceptions. But it's across out of the Premiership. Every single team is suffering. You look at Kilmarnock, Ross County, and I know we're talking about just a Celtic game here, but they're 2 of the worst red cards I've ever seen, and neither of them eventually. Ross County did eventually get a red, but that first challenge is a red, and then the Baldwin one. That's what I mean about blatant. They are blatantly obvious red cards. So that's Kilmarnock suffering, and they're just back in the division. So it's tough for all. There's almost, I don't know if you can take some sort of comfort out of knowing that a lot of teams and most teams are getting shafted, but that shouldn't be what we're kind of being reluctant to have to kind of believe. So greater refereeing is certainly needed, but when it will come or how it will come, God only knows, in all honesty.
Yeah, definitely. Ian Matheson coming in here to say, still not finding Kyogo quickly often enough. Do that and games will be wrapped up before half time. I do think that will come, Ian, but I think obviously the attempts that Celtic did make that, or tried to do that yesterday, they were kind of hindered by these decisions that we're speaking about. So I don't know if there's a bit of hesitancy now from the players to try and find them, because they think whether he's onside or he's offside, there's a good chance that they're going to put the flag up. Now, it's whether you take that risk and it pays off for you, or they just sort of try a different sort of tactic. And we've seen that time and time again from Celtic this season, that when it's not working for them, they do have a sort of plan A, B and C. They try some different things, and it's certainly been working so far this season. Daniel F saying, also Maeda coming in from the right shows that he can do it on both sides. This is the point I wanted to make. I thought certainly Jota looked very effective on that left-hand side. Obviously, he was coming up against Alex Cochrane, who was eventually sent off, and we'll get to that. But he had a fairly decent performance for Hearts. But I still thought Jota was getting a lot of joy down that left-hand side. The only one that I thought could have maybe upped his game a wee bit and it maybe would have helped Jota out was Greg Taylor. And I'm a big fan of Greg Taylor, but I just thought that was just a kind of an average performance from Taylor, whereas the last couple of weeks he's been hitting these heights, and he's going to have these games. But if the two of them were on form yesterday, I think we could have had another couple in the first half.
Yeah, he's not superhuman, but he's certainly getting that way. I think in recent weeks I've not been on, or my God, I would never have shut up about him. Yes, I am still a proud member of the Greg Taylor fan club, and it's nice to have some new members in that group. A few are jumping on the bandwagon, but no, I'm absolutely delighted for him. Obviously, I never got to speak about it, but listening to everyone last week, he was absolutely superb against Kilmarnock, and that's not. I think the fact that it's now not just a one-off with Greg Taylor. We're now actually saying that yesterday's average, nothing was terrible, just average performance. That's the exception, not Greg Taylor being outstanding. That's not the exception. That's almost what we've came to really expect with him. He's totally, taken this inverted fullback role by storm. There was a few errors yesterday, more in a defensive sense than anything. And thankfully never led to anything too sinister. But yeah, he's going to have them. But you could say that about a lot of players. There was a lot of subpar performances across the park yesterday, and that's fine. It's, like I say, it's not cause for alarm bells, which is why I think Ange Postecoglou's, nobody can really catch him out, because when things are going so high last week, he doesn't get too high. So when things are supposedly low yesterday, he can't get too low, and he just stays very medium line throughout. So you won't get a rise out of him, you won't get a bite out of him, because you can't chuck back to him, oh well, last week was this, that and whatever, because when he does get high, or when the team are high, he doesn't exactly portray that, and everything remains very grounded. So it's worked out in great fashion, and you can see that that's why he does it, and I think every great manager should do that, because things can go 5 going on 15 one week, and then yesterday it just wasn't really working out. Deserved victory, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I think when you take a look at it, this is the sort of it's the form of champions, is what they call it. Is when the team's not playing that well but can still dig out a good result like yesterday. Hearts will probably be a top 6 side this year. I've no doubt of that. So to get that sort of performance against them, even with the changes that they made, the way that they sort of dug in, I think it's very an impressive without being impressive performance yesterday, especially when some players weren't at their best, to kind of still dig that out. So many times before in previous seasons we'd have maybe have dropped points, we'd have maybe have done something daft, but I mean, when you look at it and you look at the stats overall, I don't think Hearts had a single shot on target, which we'll come to later on after Robbie Nielsen's post-match review. But if you can keep that, if you can stop them from scoring at one end, then you just have to take one or two of your chances, and we created plenty of them. So yeah, I think it's definitely a impressive without being impressive performance.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It's the form of champions. You're not going to win 5, 6, 7-0 every single week. But as much as yesterday, maybe it's that kind of scenario that, when you talk it up so much that this could be 5, 6, 7 because Hearts are going to rotate, that it should just be a walk in the park for Celtic. As you rightly alluded to, that's the games over the years that Celtic have tripped up on. And not just Celtic, it's kind of what everyone does, because the expectation is there even more so. But to be able to do that with, yes, a rotated Hearts, but as you rightly say, Liam Boyce is still playing, and only a matter of seasons ago, top goal scorer in Scotland before going down south, and he's still a real threat for Hearts. Obviously, right now, all the attention is kind of rightly so Lawrence Shankland, and you can understand why. But you've still got Josh Ginnelly, who needs to really be proven a point, especially with the incoming off Shankland. He's kind of going further down that pecking order. So you're spot on that while it was a rotation, there was a lot of those Hearts players that needed or had an opportunity here to really try and get in Robbie Nielsen's thoughts. Maybe not necessarily for Thursday, but certainly in the kind of grand scheme of things, Hearts midfield is pretty nailed on right now, and there's opportunities to get to break into that. Craig Halkett's obviously picked up from the injury, so there needs to be some changes at the back, and there's opportunities. Nathaniel Atkinson down the flank ain't doing it for me so far, and then obviously me being this side of the country, I've got a lot of Hearts supporting friends or friends, maybe I push
acquaintances,
that's the word that I couldn't think of, thank you, and they're maybe not perhaps as big as fan either, so there's opportunities to be had there, and that was a chance for some Hearts players to try and get in the mind of Robin Nielsen. And going by his post-match comments, maybe a few of them have. I don't know if they necessarily have got into my thoughts after that, but whatever Robbie sees, fair play.
Yeah, I mean, we'll touch on Nielsen and how he became the unlikely winner of the worst loser of the week competition, which I generally thought Anthony Joshua had wrapped up after his performance on Saturday night. But
the worst speech on Sky this week.
Oh, yeah. So, well done, Robbie Nielsen. To outdo Anthony Joshua after that is very impressive. But we'll touch on it, and we can see, we're going to look at the red cards now as to why Nielsen felt so aggrieved at yesterday's decision. First of all, Alex Cochrane, he's booked in the 62nd minute for basically pushing Leila Bada off the park. And that's one of those tackles that teams are going to make, especially when Celtic are on the counter-attack. They've got the chance to get down the right-hand side. Abada sort of takes the ball past him. Alex Cochrane, he's got to stop him. He's got his arms around him. He's pushing him off the park. It's 100% a yellow card. I don't think anybody could disagree with that at all.
It's a great foul to take. I'd want a Celtic player to do exactly the same. It's one of those that you're not injuring your opponent and you're stopping a breakaway in play. It's clever. It's tactical. You can understand why he's doing it. He gives the referee a thumbs up because he knows it's a yellow card. And rightly so, we all move on with our lives because that is, I've said blatant and easy yellows a lot, but that one really is, and it's a simple one for the ref.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that you wish Neil Lennon had done on Kaka at the San Siro and maybe would have had a chance that night. But then the second yellow card comes in the 89th minute, and it's a tackle on Callum McGregor. Now, he actually catches Callum McGregor on the thigh, between the sort of kneecap and the thigh area. That could have been a red card itself.
Yeah, that's a simple yellow. Linesman's right there as well, but it is high. He's kind of trying to do the same thing, almost stopping a player advancing. But you can maybe try and do it a little bit more discreetly if you're wanting to get away with it. But the minute you're kind of going anywhere around the knee, never mind quite a fair bit above it, your boots up as well. You're making it a very easy decision for the officials. I do think he actually kind of knew it himself. I know some are saying that the reaction, I think Cochrane was very well aware of the both challenges were yellows. You kind of see that in the play right away, that it's that, oh bugger, I've been caught sort of thing. And he knew he let fly basically at McGregor. Silly to do when on a booking, when it's not. Again, at that stage of the game you can see fatigue and it's lazy, and it was lazy. That's really all it really was, but it's still a dangerous foul, and it is a yellow card, so there's no qualms over that one for me.
Yeah, I mean, he committed the overall 3 fouls in the game. I can't remember the third one, to be perfectly honest, but if 2 of those are for those sort of incidents, then you are going to get booked, you are going to get yellow cards, and you are going to get sent off. What was annoying me last night was watching Sports Scene back and Jackie McNamara saying the second one was soft. And I'm thinking, how is that soft? If he'd been caught there, I mean, if he'd put any more effort into that, there's every chance that Cam McGregor could have picked up an injury yesterday. It's not
making
soft.
An attempt for the ball, is it?
It's an easy yellow card. I don't know if it got his wording wrong because it's not soft, but it's an easy yellow card to give. And I don't think he had any complaints with that one. I think that is definitely a red card. Sibic, he had the first yellow card in the 55th minute after he brought down David Turnbull. I think, again, when you look at it, it's one of those ones, it's a stopping Turnbull from getting forward on the attack. We spoke about it very similar with the Cochranes. That's a yellow card every day of the week, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're very, very similar. And that's kind of what hurts throughout the side we're doing. And I can understand why, it's you're trying to break down a quick team, a fast-playing team, a fast-thinking team, and there was frustration creeping in. You can completely understand that. You see those sort of fouls over the years, Celtic players committing them in Europe, because it's just when players are 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of you, and it's sheer frustration kicking in. I'm saying lazy with Cochrane, lazy, stupid, frustrated, annoyed. It's all of those kind of adjectives, and it's evident in their play and their body language, and it's just that, you just flick out basically, and that's what he done.
Yeah, and then the second one, 91st minute, the sort of push on the back of Abada. This is the only one that anybody can maybe have said anything at all about. But, I mean, if you follow the rules by the letter of the law, it's a yellow card. It's a second yellow card and he's sent off. I know that the sort of, I mean, Richard Foster on Sports Scene again last night, just making a complete twat of himself, saying, it's that late in the game, we should just let him away with it. No, come on, you've got to
Well,
play the
that's
rules.
incompetence, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's a ridiculous statement. You can't come out and say it doesn't matter what stage in the game it is. It shouldn't matter if it's the first minute or the 92nd minute or the 51st minute. If it's a foul, it's a foul. If it's a yellow card, it's a yellow card. If it's a red card, it's a red card. And that is as easy a yellow again, purely because it's the two hands. You know, if it's one hand and he sends them off, so it's a second yellow, then I can understand the frustration behind that, because one hand, that's lazy, and that's not in the law of the game. But the minute you've got two hands, you know, and I was having to listen to the radio yesterday, and it was Richard Gordon with Michael Stewart on Sports Sound, you know, and Richard Gordon just basically went, and that's it, Michael, you know, it's the two hands are kind of the angle that all that needs to really be seen or to be able to be convinced by. The minute you lay two hands, you know, and there's a shoving movement as well. It's not just that he's placed two hands on him. There is a push, and when you're going at that speed, no matter what minute it may be in, just because maybe Richard Foster would like to give up in the 91st minute, it wasn't Abada doing that. So to have two hands going at that speed, you know, you're going to tumble. It's a yellow for me, and it's a red. Yeah. I don't think they actually are as or requiring as much in-depth real. I think as much as I'm saying the officials have got stuff wrong this weekend, which I do think they have, I don't think there's anything wrong in either of them. I can understand that Hearts' frustration. I get it, I do. But if you're going by the laws of the game, which we all should be doing as much as possible, i.e. always, then they're yellows and then reds.
Yeah, see, when you look at it, I mean, you play the whistle. Everybody says that you play the whistle, no matter what the referee decides or not. You play the whistle, and for me that means you play the rules for the whole 90 plus however many minutes is added on, and that's one of the things that really bugs me, right? And my pals will tell you this as well. See, if a team's winning 3, 4, 5-0, whatever it may be, and there's been 6 substitutions or 10 substitutions as there is now. There's been 3 players down injured. There's been so much time wasting in the second half. And then the board goes up and it's 1 minute of added on time. That really grinds my gears. That's just basically poor officiating to the point of we'll just get them off the park because the game's done anyway.
You can't do that in a professional game. I get that on a Saturday or Sunday, you know, in the pub leagues or in the amateurs when you're getting hammered 19-0. I get that. You're just wanting these boys before a fight breaks out. But in the Scottish Premiership, in the top tier, the 42 teams in the SPFL, you should be playing you should have, the ball should be not necessarily in play, but not on the pitch, but the game should be being played for 90 minutes. Shouldn't be cut short at 87 because you can't be bothered adding on those extra 3 minutes. As you rightly say, if there's been substitutes, you know, it's meant to be 30 seconds per sub. Well, you can't have that if you're having, as you rightly say, 6 to 10 subs and then fouls as well. There's always fouls. Second half, there's always substitutions. You know, there should. I agree with you, and it grinds my gears as well. I've said before, you know, my dad and my brother, they've both done a referee, and my dad is a referee, and it's every single time, you know, it has to be at least a minimum of 3, because there's always stoppages, there's always time wasting. Hearts were time wasting yesterday. You know, Hearts were time wasting, even when it was only 1-0 down, 1-0 down. They were time wasting. So it should be a fair game, no matter who it is, no matter what time. And at times, it's not, and it's late. We're talking about lazy defending and lazy play. It's lazy officiating, just wanting off the park. It's just almost like have a short day kind of thing.
We're going to touch on the post-match comments from both managers, and we'll start with the losing manager and the sore loser of the week, Robbie Neilson. As I said, I thought Anthony Joshua, with his performance, throwing the title belts and then giving what must have been the most sarcastic hip hip hooray to Alexander Usyk would have been the guaranteed winner. But Robbie Neilson coming out saying after the game that he didn't think they were out of the game until the red cards. Now, you've got to remember the first red card was in the 89th minute. So he thought up until then that they could have come out of it. They reckon they deserved something out of the play that they had. And he believes that he can take his side to Celtic Park later on in the season and come away with a win. Now, I don't know which game Robbie Neilson was watching, but the fact that they had 0 shots on target yesterday, I think the closest they came was maybe a header that went over the bar, or Josh Ginnelly in the first 20, 30 minutes one that put past the post. But if they're going to come up and play sort of 10 men behind the ball, yes, they had that sort of really good spell in the start of the second half for about 10, 15 minutes. But Celtic weathered the storm and broke away. And for me, I really don't know what Robbie Neilson's saying. I don't know if he's just trying to give the Hearts fans something to cling on to. But if that's generally what he believes, I think he's very much deluded.
I think that's what he's trying to do. Obviously the game wasn't televised, so I don't know if he's just trying to give the impression to his fans that Hearts were in it a bit more than they were, and if you look at the scoreline at 1-0, you can never say that you're in cruise control and comfortable. Celtic were as close to probably being that. No team in the world can be comfortable at 1-0. It's not a comfortable scoreline, because it only takes one moment of madness, sheer luck, anything, and the tide can turn, and that's the beauty of football. But I don't know if that's Neilson, trying to maybe kid on a kidder, that at 1-0 Hearts were still kind of in it. I guess technically they are, but if anyone has seen any of it, that's certainly not the case. So it's a big week for the club, and if I was Robbie Neilson, I think I maybe just would have quickly turned my attention, even in my post-match comments, onto Thursday, because rightly so, I've got no qualms with him making those changes to his side. He's protecting his team and giving his club the best opportunity to go through in a competition that does well for Scottish football. And I don't like when Scottish football as a game really needs to go up a gear. It needs to be in the limelight a little bit more, and the only reason we're going to get that is if the other teams are helping out in the coefficient. Is so important. So I do think there has to be a real hope that Hearts do go through on Thursday, and I think that if Robbie Neilson perhaps just suggested more that the focus really was on that game and not on Sunday, I think we'd all have a little bit more respect perhaps for him, and not trying to kidder. Look, we know what you were trying to do. We agree with what you were trying to do, because I think we all would have kind of done the same. But don't try and say that you were in a game that you really weren't ever.
Exactly. Going to bring in some of the comments. We've got over 650 watching live. A warm welcome to you all on this Monday lunchtime. I hope you're in as good a mood as us after the weekend's performances. Mr. Whip 55 comes in to say, what is Neilson on about when he says they deserve something from the game? Well, we just sort of touched on that there. It's delusional to say the best. Dermot Celtic Rabbito comes in to say, it's nice to win against a decent team when we don't play that well. We touched on that as well, Amy. There were games where we dropped points at the start of last year. That's definitely the way we looked at it. Liam Shevlin saying 15 shots, 7 on target, not bad, especially on a day when we weren't at our best. We need to stop complaining sometimes. We won 2-0 at the end of the day. We move, roll on Dundee United. Probably a really good time to be coming up against Dundee United, considering their poor form at the minute. Ian Matheson saying, can only listen on Radio Scotland. You'd have thought we were hanging on for most of the second half. You'd agree with that, Amy? You said you were listening on the radio. That was the kind of vibe you were getting.
I was listening on the radio in the office yesterday, but we get the stream through, obviously. So I did manage to catch a lot of the game, and everyone views a game differently, put it that way.
Yeah, Sean H coming in to say, I'm all for a manager coming out and sending a bit of hope to the players and fans, because they did have a decent little spell, but he's just come across as delusional. Can't disagree with that. Pat Dolan coming in to say, Colin, Hearts with better application could have snatched the draw when at 1-0. 1-0 deep into the game is never a gimme. I agree with that, Pat. I do think if you were coming up against a better opposition, you just don't know what they'd have kind of been. But I mean, for Robbie Nielsen to come out and say that his team deserves something, he would need to show that in terms of the opportunities that they took, and they didn't take any of them. They didn't even test Joe Hart. Joe Hart's coming off there with clean gloves, and that says a lot about yesterday's performance. Ange Postecoglou after the game says it was an okay performance, very stop-start. He believes that Celtic side can do better. They can do more of the free-flowing attacking football that he's come to expect from his side. After the game, he was also asked about a potential deal for Montenegrin left winger side Hakšabanović. He says that the deal is close and that we may be able to comment in the next few days. We understand that Hakšabanović was in London over the weekend to complete a medical, and at the minute we're just working on things like a work permit for him. So it does look as if the deal for Hakšabanović is close, Amy. We have noticed that the only time that Ange really comments on a signing is when he believes it's kind of there. He mentioned the last time round when we signed Darren Mooy, and we signed who came in alongside Darren Mooy again, Moritz Jens, that he expected 2 deals to be done in the next couple of days, and then within 48 hours these guys are announced. I think it's only when we're getting the deals pretty much over the line that Ange is willing to say anything.
Yeah, he's not kind of a guy that minces with his words, and he's certainly up until now never really made a suggestion that's not really came to fruition, so that he doesn't set up or tee up for egg on his face, really. So I think the fact that he addressed that is as good as a confirmation as you can probably expect or wish for right now. I think the fact that the question was allowed to be asked as well gives a little bit of hope, and the fact that he answered it and not just brushing it aside is certainly a good sign.
What do you make of the deal for Hakšabanović? We've not really had your views on it. What do you make of him as a player? Have you seen the kind of clips that's going around?
Yeah, I have. I'm quite excited by him. I don't think that he's going to come in right away and perhaps be Ange Postecoglou fully fit, but actually who is or how he has been, because that's very high expectations. So I think it may take a couple of weeks just to have him hitting the ground fully running up to speed. But no, I've been impressed, and I think it's an area that it's not surplus to requirements. I think it's a wise signing. I know we're delighted the flexibility right now of Jota and Maeda managing to switch sides so seamlessly, even throughout the game. I think it's a joy to watch how and when really they do just swap sides, and the quality doesn't drop on either side, and you're still able to bring on a Bada from the bench. And that's even without James Forrest as well, who does still need to be involved in the conversation. I know some may not wish that to be the case, but he is. And with that new long-term deal, he certainly will be in the conversation for a while. So, he has to be considered. So I think it is wise. After that, I can probably see Celtic maybe wrapping stuff up. I would have preferred as well a defensive midfielder, but beggars can't be choosers. And I think if you presented this transfer window to us back in May, beginning of June, whatever it may have been, I think pretty much every Celtic fan would have bit your hand off, and if they wouldn't, I'd like to know why.
I did say, I think just before the end of last season, when we were talking about what would be a transfer window, an ideal transfer window for us, I was saying that we need to get rid of the deadwood, and at that time all the chat was around Jota and Jota and Cameron Carter-Vickers, and whether we could seal them down on long-term deals, and we obviously did do that for both of them. And I was saying after that, I'd be looking for maybe somewhere between 5 to 7 other players to come in there to sort of supplement and add strength and depth to this squad. And I think with the addition of Hakšabanović, you've obviously got Aaron Mooy, you've got Moritz Jens, Alexander Bernabei, and you've also got Siegrist so far. I think that is a very good sort of strength and depth that we've added to the squad. Moritz Jens obviously came in and he's hit the ground running very, very well. Excuse me, sorry. And I do think that we maybe have one more to come. I don't think this will be us wrapped up. I think we could see us potentially bringing one in again, but I do think it will come down to whether we'll be able to get rid of guys like Albin Ayeti and players like that. I think we've done well to get rid of quite a bit of the deadwood so far this season, but there's still some more to go. So it's worth kind of checking that out to see how we get on. Hakšabanović for me, I think if he comes in, it's a good thing to have down the left hand side, because I do think Mikey Johnson will go out on loan. I think they're kind of holding off till they get someone in to bring him in, and I'm seeing a couple of comments here, and I just want to kind of put out a special mention for yesterday's game to Aaron Mooy. I thought Aaron Mooy was very impressive when he came on. He had a fantastic interception in the last couple of minutes, and since he's kind of came in and played that sort of 20-30 minutes, I think he's going to eventually be your defensive midfielder. I think he's the guy that's going to come in there. He's looked very comfortable in that position. He has very good ball retention, and his passing, as much as it's only sort of maybe 5, 6, 7 yards at a time, it's just being able to keep that ball moving, and he always pass and move and pass and move, so he's always available for the ball. I think eventually he'll be the central defensive midfielder, and you can see already Callum McGregor's looking forward to making that move a bit further up the park.
Yeah, I have to agree. I do think he was pretty impressive yesterday. It's more just what I've said throughout the transfer window, that I still, even when Mooy did actually come in, I still said that's probably the only other signing that I would have went for, to really try and strengthen still. But if Ange can really get a tune out of Mooy, which if anyone can, you would imagine it would be him. I said at the time, because there was this very mixed reactions to his signing. Some were saying it's just a bit silly. His career's, his best days are kind of behind him, and others, had a lot more optimism. I think what's clear is that no matter what Ange has kind of signed him for, if it is just a 30-minute cameo or the starting defensive midfielding kind of role, then that is what's going to be. I do still think that will just be the 30-minute, 45 at an absolute push. I don't see him building into that yet, but I will gladly be proven wrong, because when he was in his best days, they were pretty decent days. So if we can have a Mooy who is able to compete for 60, 75 minutes at a push even, then fair play. If you still have to ask me, I'd still ask to bring in another one.
Well, I mean, this is the kind of position we find ourselves in, because we've got the money in the bank, we've got the Champions League Cup money coming in. If you're looking to add strength and depth, then you can go out and do that, and we should go out and do that. Not to the point where we put ourselves into trouble, but just to the point where we know that we might actually be competitive in these games, or we can tie up the league this year again and get that jackpot again next season. We've just got to be very kind of prudent, but also be expansive at the same time, and look to make sure that we've got the right enough squad, so that if we do pick up a couple of injuries, then we know we can turn to these players and they'll actually do us a job. One last kind of mention for Georgios Giakoumakis. Again, another player, Amy, who a lot of Celtic fans would start him. A lot of Celtic fans think he deserves more than 20 minutes off the bench. It's hard to disagree with that. You've also got Kyogo, who scored 3 and 3. We don't seem to play 2 up front. It's going to be down to Ange as to how he keeps both of them happy this season.
What a great
dilemma to have.
Dilemma to have, exactly. Conundrum, whatever you really want to call it. The 2 top quality strikers. How you keep them both happy, that's Ange Postecoglou's problem. But what a decent one to have. I don't know. I quite like. I think I can see why he does what he does right now. I think you have Kyogo, running tirelessly at defenders, tiring defenders out for an hour or so, and then bringing the big man on, and he just causes havoc. Does that then though? There will become a point, that Giakoumakis is coming on and continue to score in goals, no matter how fleeting his cameo is, there will be a time that he's got a right to knock on the door and go, what do I need to do to really be a starter here? And that's then where it gets tricky. If that dynamic is something that both are happy with, that 60-30 sort of thing, or whatever it may be, then great. But this is a top quality striker here who's got ambitions himself, and not that the team, what happens for the team obviously matters as well, but at the end of the day, he is still a player himself, and he has to think about himself. We can try and joke and or pretend that a player doesn't have his own best intentions at heart, and it is only about the team. I think a lot of it is still about the team, but if you're scoring 10 goals from 20-minute appearances each week and you're not getting a starter, you're going to start getting pretty miffed off, and as anyone would. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic does grow, but I think as a fan right now, that's not really our problem, is it? And you just get to enjoy them both in their pomp, and whatever it may be. Because if you had to really go then for Europe, you would kind of say that Giakoumakis is probably a better mould for Europe, especially the teams that we will be coming up against. Because no matter what, it's going to be a top quality sides, all three, real top quality. So it'll be very, very interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I think both of them are certainly on course already to score 20 goals this season each, which will be a fantastic return from them both. And as Rab McNair comes in to say, we're about to start playing 2 to 3 games a week. I think there'll be a bit more rotation as that comes in. It'll be just a case of people sort of biding their time, and we'll probably see that in terms of guys like Alexander Bernabe and stuff getting some minutes soon too. Whilst we were on air, Celtic did release additional tickets for the Glasgow Derby. They launched it at 2 minutes past 1, and by 18 minutes past 1, they were sold out. So unfortunately, if you were looking to try and get tickets for that game, it is now sold out. So that is the Glasgow Derby.
How inconvenient for them to do that during AXOM.
I know, it's as if they were just trying to do it against this. I'm not getting to that game, and I'm really disappointed. And I'll tell you why later on, but it's a bit of a contentious one. Let me share this with you guys, but another game that went on sale this morning was St Mirren versus Celtic at the new Love Street, or whatever it's called. Is it the Smiza Stadium?
Smiza.
1,493 tickets went on sale, which is a reduction of about 50% from last season. To qualify for it, you have to have went to 44 away games over 3 years. So you can tell that it's a very tight allocation to try and get a ticket from. But then this appears on St Mirren's website earlier on today. We're going to try and bring this up, so let us know if we can see that. So what it's looking for here is for St Mirren fans to donate £30 to the club, as they were deciding to retain all 3 stands for the home fans for this game and for games against Celtic and Rangers later on in the season. I think, Amy, this is showing that they know that they're going to lose money from this, and they are no matter how hard they try, money is the big thing, and if they can't get it off of Celtic fans, they're going to try and get it off their own, because they know they're not going to sell this out.
What a strange approach, isn't it? Wow, you just kind of really got to shake your head at this, I would say. St Mirren, a side that I've been really impressed by this year as well, and I was lucky enough to have a wee chat with Stephen Robinson, and everything. I was, really taken by what they've kind of been trying to sell, and then this kind of comes across, and you're just like, what's happening here? I find it odd. I find it really, really strange. I don't understand why you would do that. I must ask, I've got a few friends that are St Mirren fans. I must ask what they think about it, and I'll get back to you, because that's I honestly, I don't have any words, because I can't actually fathom out how anyone thinks that this is a wise thing to do. not only are you kind of, well, you're not going to have a very sold out stadium at all, are you? You're turning down evident money from the away support, and then you've kind of got the cheek almost to ask your own fans to do this during a cost of living crisis as well. Tickets, season tickets, normal tickets are dear enough as it is, and then this kind of £30 voluntary contribution, it's not for me, put it that way. I think it's a really, really strange approach, and I wouldn't mind St Mirren getting a fair bit of criticism for this, actually.
I don't, obviously, it's very small writing, so you might not be able to see it, but it does say here in the event description that during the pre-season they had a survey that went out to the home fans, and it did say that some of the fans would be willing to contribute to this to make up for the lost revenue that they will get from this game. But I mean, what benefit does this kind of bring to a team? Johnny Ryan's got a really good point here. Empty stadiums always look good on TV. That's sarcasm. How do we sell the game? We talk about having a terrible TV deal, and then the next minute we're saying, oh, by the way, see, for every empty seat, instead of getting our money off a fan who would really like to go to the game, how about you just pay double for your own ticket, and we'll just make sure that we don't have as many of the away fans in.
Exactly. If you're going to do it, and you're not going to allow the allocation that you were previously allowed, or gave to away fans, then right, that's on you. And I can kind of understand to a degree that why you would do that, because you're not wanting to shift your own fans, and you're kind of going, not that I agree with it, I can understand why clubs would maybe be doing that, because it's their ground and they still want it to feel like a home game to their players. But then to kind of have the audacity to ask this of your own fans, I find that mind-boggling, in all honesty. I think it's quite cheeky. It's probably the word that I am coming up with right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this earlier on in the season when Ross County cut the allocation for Celtic, and then for the League Cup tie, it was open the doors and you come. I think that's going to be what happens with St Mirren as well. I can see them maybe doing this for the first game, and then after that, if they don't get the revenue that they're looking for, then when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, for teams like that, money talks, and they need to stay in business. So I can see things changing. But yeah, if you do get a ticket to that, then congratulations, because I think you'd have better odds of winning the Euro Millions at this rate. We're just going to wrap up here because we're just coming to the top of the hour. Just a quick mention to the Celtic women's team. Another 4-0 victory over Spartans yesterday. Goals for Calissa Larissi, Taylor Otto on her debut, and Chloe Craig from the penalty spot. A 4-0 victory sends Celtic to the top of that table as well, 9 points out of 9. A great start for Fran Alonso's team. And Celtic B team having a 1-8 draw with Hearts. B team yesterday, a very young side that came up against Hearts. But again, some good, valuable experience. I know, Amy, you're biting your tongue here because you can say a lot more.
Let's talk about the women.
But we could have a whole podcast on all of that. But it's been good to have the young team back. It's been a while. Amy, hopefully it'll not be that long before we do another one of these.
We're just the best. We are.
Yeah. And if you agree with Amy, then drop us a thumbs up below. Subscribe to the channel. There's some really good content up there, especially from the State of Mind music festival, which took place last week. Some great clips from Las Vegas and some other local Scottish artists. We'll be back tomorrow. Declan will be leading the trio tomorrow at 12:30. And who knows, maybe by then, Hakšabanović will be paraded in a Celtic jersey. Until then, take care, stay safe, and as always, hail, hail.